So how cool can a game with really good combat be if the enemies that you're beating the red orbs out of aren't interesting? Devil May Cry has always had some pretty sweet looking enemy designs, and more importantly than that, they're always fun to fight and can be a challenge from time to time. And since I've killed literally hundreds of these things, I'm here to show a little appreciation for once. So here's a look at my 10 favorite enemies in the Devil May Cry series. Despite the name implying that it would be something completely different, the Basilisk in DMC4 still manages to be one of the coolest looking demons in the enemy lineup. It has a nice skeletal hound-like body with flame-covered insides that would make the dogs from Resident Evil think twice before messing with it. Their main attack is this move where they shoot their head at you like a cannon. They usually come in groups, but they're still relatively easy to handle. Even on higher difficulties, I don't find myself struggling too much with fighting them. Bustering them as Nero is a lot of fun as well. Just sling the sucker over your shoulder and bang, free projectile attack. They also get bonus points for being the least annoying of the Agnes creation enemy archetype. I feel like the 7 Deadly Sin archetype in DMC3 was a pretty big missed opportunity from a creative standpoint as far as enemy rosters go. With the exception of the Wrath and the Greed, none of them really felt all that different from each other besides a minute detail that gets changed up here or there. That being said, they are definitely the least annoying enemy type in DMC3, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the Pride here as the representative for these guys because I feel like it's the most memorable one. After all, they had the best introduction. Dante clowning them out in the opening cutscene is something I'll think about way before just the random introductions in the following missions for the other demons. Appearance-wise, they have a pretty cool looking Grim Reaper motif going for them, and as far as moveset goes, they have pretty basic moves, a normal slash attack and a spin move. They're pretty easy to deal with on their own, but massive groups of them might give you trouble if you're playing on higher difficulties. It also amuses me that the demon that represents Pride is one of the most common and pathetic and easily defeatable enemies in the game. I like where your head's at, DMC. The Ravager is a perfect example of how making an enemy look cooler is easily accomplished by just adding a chainsaw. The Ravagers pretty much just look like Stygians, but they have a foldable chainsaw arm, which for my money makes them look approximately 150% cooler. I'm also a fan of enemies that aren't too much of a chore to deal with, but will mess you up if you're not being careful. Fighting a Ravager is relatively simple. Use drive to stun it, and then go nuts with a combo of your choice. However, if you get distracted by, say, a lesser Stygian or a Bathos, a Ravager will come and chainsaw your guts out if you aren't paying attention. It's the give and take that makes this guy so interesting. These guys share a lot of similarities with the 7 Deadly Sin enemies. The two differences being they look a good bit cooler than the 7 Deadly Sins, and 2, their moveset actually feels complete. A neat little in-universe detail about the Abyss is that they materialize using blood rather than sand like a lot of the other demons. On one hand, that's really cheesy, and on the other hand, it's pretty cool. They're probably the most well-rounded enemy in the game, given that they boast the best attributes of all of the 7 Deadly Sin enemies. They're as fast as the Lusts, they can block like the Prides, they have the best mobility with their teleport, and they have a ranged move. Being predominantly white with some red accenting really helps these guys stick out to me from a visual standpoint too. A cool looking elite enemy for the last couple missions of the game. Can't really ask for much more than that. Alright, I'm including both Knight Armor enemies from DMC4 together since they are rarely seen without one another. Alto Angelos will put up more of a fight on their own than a Bianco Angelo will on their own, but a large group of Bianco Angelos can be a lot to handle. Like in the special edition of DMC4 when I was running through Legendary Dark Knight mode and got to the first room of all Bianco Angelos, it was tougher than I expected it to be. Alto Angelos are more aggressive than the Biancos, and they buff their underlings as well. Both of them have two of the most satisfying busters in the game though. For Biancos, Nero just stabs them with their lance and jets them off in whatever direction you choose, and for the Alto Angelos, Nero busts out a classic German suplex dropkick combo. I can't wait until Devil May Cry 5 when Nero just decides to start chokeslamming fools. Nobodies are another enemy that I will either deal with pretty easily or they will destroy me without a second thought. A lot of the time I'll manage to just stinger them into submission if I'm fighting one on its own, but if I'm fighting them in a group I get blindsided a lot. Their grab move is pretty dangerous and the jump kick that they do is downright devastating on higher difficulties. Even without the heavy hitting moves, they still have some attacks that are just annoying, such as the devil trigger draining dance or their stupid eyeball that drops out of their side and just pops. Design-wise, they're easily one of the most unsettling creatures in the series. They always look like they're contorting in ways that they shouldn't, they've got an extra arm, and they always hop around like a bunch of excited monkeys. I swear, sometimes I hear that laugh in my dreams and wake up in a cold sweat. Blades are just all around good at fighting, which always makes them interesting to tackle. On higher difficulties, I will go into a fight against a pack of them thinking that I'll be fine, only for them to dispatch of me like a pack of lions on a gazelle. Needless to say, they always keep me on my toes. The easy strategy for defeating them is to hit them with high time to knock them over, and then hit them while they're on the ground. The cool thing about them is that they are equally as fun to try and just punch them away with Ifrit, or if you're fighting them in Devil May Cry 4, smack them around with a buster. The blade manages to do something that I feel like most Devil May Cry enemies should do. They are versatile in the way that they can fight you, but that freedom for them isn't restrictive to you. You can still fight them however you want. I wish I could say the same thing for some of DMC3's more frustrating enemies. The Dreamrunner mini-bosses in Ninja Theory's DMC are the most fun enemies to fight in the game. I even enjoy fighting them more than any of the boss battles. They look awesome, they're dressed like some kind of demonic ninja with either a pale blue mask or a red one. They are the best enemy in the game because they put all of your skills to the test. They block almost all of your moves and are really quick to counterattack, so you really have to nail the timing for the dodges. Heck, even sending them up in the air isn't a guaranteed combo because sometimes they'll counter you before you even hit the ground. They block any projectile attack that isn't explosive or a charge shot. Their teleporting and speed in general make them the most mobile enemy in the game. It gets even better on higher difficulties when they throw up to like 3 of them at you at once. The Dreamrunners might not kill me that often, but when I fight them, they definitely make me work for the victory. The truly funny thing about the Shadow is that while I'm playing the game, all I do is yell about how much I hate them. They ambush you in hallways when you aren't expecting it, they have a kamikaze attack that they use when they're low on HP, and if one isn't bad enough, there are plenty of instances where they attack you 2 or 3 at a time. On paper, those are all reasons to hate these enemies, but fighting them is just so darn exciting. The strategy is simple. You have to shoot it with guns until it reveals its weak point, so you can go nuts on it with melee attacks. Actually doing that, however, is another story. The Shadow is a fast and deadly creature with a pretty impressive set of tricks. In many of its encounters, it will greet you by jumping into the air and doing its spinning blade attack. Other attacks include melding into the floor to summon spikes to try and skewer you, rushing at you and trying to eat you, and extending its head like a spear to try and stab you. Once you've hurt the thing, it tries to attack you with increasing speed, and as mentioned before, has a self-destruct move. There are very few things in video games that will put me into a state of focus like fighting 3 shadows on Dante Must Die mode. It's just so much fun, and the feeling of triumph once you succeed is overwhelming. If you really want to show off, do Secret Mission 4 on Dante Must Die difficulty with a brand new file. It's probably one of the hardest challenges this series has to offer. As much fun as I have fighting shadows on higher difficulties, there are definitely times that they show up and I'm not in the mood to fight them. The Death Scythe, on the other hand, I don't think there's an instance where I'm upset that the game is throwing one of them at me. First of all, their design is awesome. They have the same kind of spectral Grim Reaper motif as the Sin Scythes and Sin Scissors do, but their mask is a skull instead of a porcelain doll face, and it's accompanied by this awesome red aura. While they aren't as challenging as shadows, they'll still mess you up if you aren't careful. Any direct attack from them on Dante Must Die mode will send your health into critical condition. Their attacks are also a lot quicker than that of their Sin Scythe variants. They employ the usual strategy of phasing through walls to avoid your attacks, and their Cyclone funnels can either be a helping hand or an annoying hindrance depending on how you're going about fighting them. Once you lower their health by a substantial amount, they start trying to wield 4 scythes at once, and things can get pretty messy if you don't take them down before that. Thankfully, the Death Scythe leaves itself open to being finished off a lot of the time when he's trying to call his extra weapons. The Death Scythe is everything I feel like a Devil May Cry enemy should be. It looks awesome, and it's challenging without being too stressful. And you can fight it in just about any manner you choose. Seeing things like the Sin Scissors and Prides in the Devil May Cry 5 trailers has been really cool, but if I see a Death Scythe show up in the new game, I will be over the moon.